we've had many instances where someone pitched us an idea that, I know other landlords would pass on. But when I got to meet the person, I saw such a winning culture and attitude that this person was betting their life on it. And I would say, let's go for it. Let's try it out.
Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the latest episode of the People of Private Capital podcast with me, Ferdy Roberts, CEO and founder at Asset Class. Today, we'll be talking with Garret Bedrin. Garret is a partner at the Bedrin organization based in New Jersey here in the US. And Garret shares with us his experiences working for the family business, in fact, a business some 70 years in the making, talking about his experiences both in and outside of the family business, his time during what we'll refer to as the Jerry Maguire era, working with the New York Nets and the Golden State Warriors, and how that influenced and affected his view in a business sense. He'll also be sharing with us the investment thesis of the Bedrin organization and how that's developed over time from retail to mixed use and beyond into multifamily. So a really great conversation with Garret. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. And with that, let's jump into the People of Private Capital podcast this week with Garret Bedrin. Well, Garret, clearly there's a lot going on there. Some very interesting elements to your background. Looking forward to diving in here and understanding a bit more about what you're doing, the investment thesis behind the Bedrin organization, etc. But first of all, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Ferdy. I think I need 2 cell phones. It's getting busy here. We need to upgrade our plan because the phone's ringing, and we're excited to be here and spend a little bit of time with you.
Good. Well, likewise. So Garret, I know we had an opportunity to speak prior to today, just by way of background, and I mentioned to you that we like as much as possible to delve into people's background. First of all, start with a little bit of an understanding of, where you came from and what got you to where you are today, before we kind of broaden the scope a little bit and talk about the many and varied interests that you have at the Bedrin organization. So if you wouldn't mind, if I kind of take you back a little bit to, Garret as a teenager. We will talk in detail, I'm sure, about the fact that you focus a lot of your efforts in the family business today. But with Garret as a teenager, can you kind of describe your outlook on business and maybe some influences as you move through your teenage years right into the field of work that you're involved in today?
Absolutely. I always had a big interest in sports growing up. And it's funny, the family business was different than it is today. It was a office supply business called Allied. And that company was a corporate sponsor of the New Jersey Nets, the basketball team in the NBA, who have now moved to Brooklyn, and also the New York Giants, the football team. And this was way before corporate sponsorships were millions of dollars. These were much, much, much smaller deals back in the 80s. And I just grew up watching these sports and watching the relationship that was created when, maybe my dad would take a client to a game, or somebody would take one of their clients. And I always fell in love with that experience. And I ended up wanting to get involved in professional sports. And it's funny, I had this kind of weird, rare kind of blood issue, which was, thank God, not something horrible. And the doctor said to me, you really shouldn't play certain sports anymore. This was in high school. Well, that inspired me to say, all right, well, maybe I can work as the manager or something and be behind the scenes. So I helped out the basketball team, and I was kind of the manager, and I would fold the warm-ups and travel with the team. And it was a lot of fun to be with my friends because I had played on the team, the first couple of years before I learned about that.
Right.
And I was able to, through this relationship with the Nets, they actually offered me a job as a ball boy. And my senior year of high school, I worked for the Nets every game. And I got to meet, obviously, all the pros on the team. And, Michael Jordan, was throwing the basketball back and forth with him, and I have an autographed shirt from him. And but most importantly, that really taught me about the business side of sports. And there was a coach there named John Calipari who had just left UMass. And he brought with him a number of people that were on his staff. And, as I got to know them working in the locker room and on game days, they said, look, Garrett, if you really want to work in sports as a business, you need to go to UMass and study sport management. It's a real program and it's the best. And I said, my goodness, this is great. Business and sports, I'm in. Where do I sign up? So that was kind of the entree to that. And, I went to UMass. I managed the women's field hockey team. I managed the men's basketball team a little bit. And, I really enjoyed that. And I did a independent study, kind of writing a new chapter in a textbook on the internet and college sports. And I got to do an internship with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So instead of going to school my last semester, I got to live in Florida at their spring training facility and help with everything from, throwing out the first pitch, to learning the box office, to community affairs, to working in the locker room. Anything that needed help, we were there, and we were interns for 3 or 4 months. Incredible experience. That then got me into another level where I was able to talk to some professional teams in the NBA when I graduated through a relationship from one of the professors who had worked in the NBA. And I had the chance to move to the San Francisco Bay Area and work for the Golden State Warriors right out of college, which I think was always important to, if you're going to join a family business, take a few years to yourself, learn how other companies work, other families work before you join the family business. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
And so, growing up, seeing my dad as an entrepreneur, I always knew that I'd want to do something more entrepreneurial, but I also thought it was important to do something, my own thing out of state, and obviously having that love of sports. And one of my best friends is now the president of the team. He started the same time I did.
Wow.
After 20 years, worked his way up. We were selling tickets together. So I've had great moments over the years. I got to go to Game 6 when the Warriors beat the Celtics last year, and actually got to go to the after party with the team and hold the trophy at 2:30 in the morning, which was a pretty late night for me.
Incredible.
So I always thought about kind of sports, entrepreneurship, and, worked out well moving back home about 15, 20 years ago now.
Yeah. And what was your dad supportive of that? Just the high level history that we spoke about. The business started out, as you mentioned, it was in the late 40s, right?
Yeah.
And as Allied.
7. Yep.
Yep. Your dad and I guess your uncle got involved.
Grandfather.
Was it? Sorry, by your grandfather. But
My grandfather. Yep.
yeah. And then your dad and your uncle joined the business in the kind of late 60s, early 70s.
That's right.
And then you and your cousin joined. When was that?
So actually, my cousin Michael, he joined the Allied business. He was a big part of that business in the mid to late 90s.
Okay.
He's a little bit older than I am. I never joined that business. It just, timing wise, I was still in high school.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I was on the mode of being a sports agent, being Jerry Maguire,
Right.
Careless. And so, but I joined the real estate business in 2005.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so we sold the Allied business around 98, 99, and Allied became the cornerstone of a much larger company. So overnight, I think we went from maybe $60 or $70 million in sales overnight to, a couple $100 million. There was a bunch of companies that kind of came together. But in the heyday, the mid 80s to late 90s, Allied was just a great company. Over 300 employees. We had 300 trucks. We took care of every medium-sized business in the area. And we really pioneered some things like, first of all, customer service. There was no Mr. Staples or Mr. Office Depot.
Yeah.
And, Paul and Jerry would go on sales calls and people would say, "You're the owners, really?" And we were always coming up with new ideas like, free delivery in 24 hours, or, let's say you were the person in charge of the office supplies. You don't want to get 15 invoices, so we would do one invoice.
Yep.
And we could sell you not only your pens and pencils, but also your ink or your coffee or your janitorial supplies. We really made doing business easy, and everybody loved Allied. The customers loved Allied. And a lot of small mom and pop office supply companies went out of business, and we kept growing. Mm-hmm. And that was a number of things. Luck. It was the great location we were in the Meadowlands in northern New Jersey, where Office Depot just didn't really have a big foothold. And it was because of the customer service, because of the family approach. We had company outings. we always say here at our new company, we say we treat our tenants like our customers because we always felt like we had to take care of our customers.
Yeah.
And, most landlords don't care about their tenants, and, we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And was your dad supportive of that experience outside of the company before? So you know,
Absolutely.
yeah,
100%. And, he would have been supportive of me staying and, continuing to grow that dream. I think for me, I got to the point where, after 3 years, it's, first of all, when you're entry level at a professional sports team, not only are you making 80, 90 phone calls a day selling tickets,
yeah,
you have to go to every event. And I mean a circus, Disney on Ice, everything that they have at the arena. You're handing out flyers.
yeah,
You're working on the weekends. It's a young person's job. It's not for a family man. And you just got to get a little burnout after 3 years. And I felt like I'm working so hard for someone else's family, I could be really putting this effort into our family.
yeah.
And also, in all fairness, we started to buy a few properties. Maybe we had one or two at that time, not a lot. So there wasn't much to do. And so as more opportunities presented themselves to our family, as we started to grow the name Bedrin in real estate, we saw more things. So, my dad would call me and say, hey, we're looking at this shopping center. And I said, Dad, what if I think I'm ready to move home? I could focus more of my time on acquisitions and looking at growing, especially in like the Southeast, where clearly people were moving to the Carolinas and Atlanta and Virginia. So that's kind of where it came together to really focus, on the Southeast. So I ended up moving home, and we are 15 years later, I guess.
Yeah, very good. And so, just before we kind of move off that period of your life, what did you take from, let's say, your exposure to these sports organizations that you could say really benefited you as you moved into, back into the family business, I guess?
Yeah, it was really great to get a great sales background and foundation. Sales is the lifeblood of every industry. You're not a for-profit company if you're not having some type of sales engine. And so, when we were at the Warriors, we would make our calls, and the goal was not to sell tickets over the phone. The goal was to make an appointment at the arena and bring somebody to the arena and wow them with this beautiful tour and their great seats and the entrance and the parking, right? And smelling of the popcorn, and walking around and seeing the lights and the court set up. And so that to me is something I think about all the time. And we used to do this event called like Pick Your Seat Day, where you'll put down a small deposit for your tickets, you'll come to the arena, and it creates this excitement. It creates urgency, well, you're picking your seat first, I'm second, you're third.
Yeah.
The excitement and the urgency. And I use that all the time in my business in many different facets, trying to set up appointments, trying to talk to my team about setting up your tour. You're not selling over the phone. You're building that relationship. You're getting to know the person. You're trying to solve their problems. And that happens in person, not on a cold call.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. I interestingly, I had an opportunity about 4 or 5 years ago to go behind the scenes at Golden State. There's a gentleman who looked after the facilities there who was a friend of somebody I'd worked with. And my son was very big into basketball. We had an opportunity to go there. And actually, I can remember the ticket sales area there just up outside, just by the manager's office, right? And seeing the buzz and excitement and things of that nature. So it's, clearly it didn't come across in any way as a kind of a high pressure sales environment, but it was certainly a let's say a target driven environment, which, as you say, it's important, and it doesn't really matter what business you're in to have that focus. And
if you're trying to rent somebody an apartment, you're trying to bring them in and show them how beautiful it is to live here.
Yeah.
And you want to take them into a model where they could see books and see wine glasses, and the lights are on, and there's towels and beautiful pictures and artwork, and they're envisioning themselves living here.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to make that appointment on the phone to get them to come there.
Right.
And when you're there, you're trying to make sure that they don't leave.
Right, right. Yeah. So I guess and actually that's the interesting thing. The one thing I'll remember from that, it was very much an experience.
Yeah,
As you moved through you come into reception and you're walking past the history of the players and everything's emblazoned, with the history of success of the team.
And that's what we do in our apartment communities. We have in our office a whole history of the family and showing photos from the groundbreaking. And we want people to see that a whole family and lifetime went into getting where we are today.
Yeah.
And that there's real people behind here if there's issues to deal with. Because issues always come up, but you have to handle them.
Yeah.
And then we also show a huge community map, like where you could go eat, where the buses are, where's the trains. We want people to feel like they're living in a residence, they're in a home, they're part of a community. And then we try to create events and entertainment and food trucks and resident and other retention ideas. So it's very important to create a sense of community, a sense of connection.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, and we might touch on that a little bit here in a moment. Just to kind of to continue the story then, in the mid-2000s, as you say, about 2005, you come back, you start to get involved in it, and as I understand it, you're focused more on kind of the acquisitions and investor relations side of the business, and then you have your cousin Michael, who's more kind of construction oriented, right, and development. How did that develop for you? I mean, what's your journey from, say, the mid-2000s through to what you're doing today, and maybe talk about how that evolved, because I understand the initial focus was really on that kind of that retail focus, and I guess leveraging the experience that your family had, retail, and how that influenced
exactly
the rest. Yes,
that's exactly right. So it was a natural progression and a natural evolution, Ferdy, because we were so well known in retail. Ally was a very well respected company. Over the years, many different types of awards for entrepreneurship, for family business, for small business. And we had a lot of retail relationships. So it was very natural that we started focusing on retail-based properties where we could literally call up the retailer and talk about our retail experience and understand, are they doing well? Will they renew here, right? What are the challenges with the property that they're dealing with that maybe they wouldn't have given that information to somebody who didn't have a retail background? I remember going on some of the early property tours with my uncle and him teaching me about look up at the lighting and look down how clean the floor is, and let's look at our inventory. Let's see if this inventory is deep and is it in good shape, and let's touch some of the melons, things like that. And that was, fun learning environments, and obviously talking to the managers of the store to understand how well they're doing here compared to other locations. Nowadays, they have a lot of data that you can do where you can just track cell phones through Placer ID and or Placer AI, I think it's called.
Right.
It'll tell you, 1,000 people were in the store last week, and its sister store 4 miles away only had 500.
Right. Okay.
You at 1,000. Okay, so now I know the store is doing better than the competitor. And my dad and uncle worked together for 30, 40 years. They were always partners. And so, my cousin and I, this was kind of a natural evolution for us to be together by choice, not by force whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think people have their own personalities. My dad and I are both very kind of outgoing and front of the house and sales oriented, and acquisitions is very much kind of sales and turning over rocks and, finding new opportunities and raising money from investors as well, building those long-term relationships. And, I think my uncle and my cousin both enjoyed kind of keeping an eye on things back of the house and, working with our vendors and our contractors and different systems. And I think you need both those, platforms. You need both those strategies to run a successful business. It's like someone's got to get out there catching the fish and someone's got to be cleaning the fish. No one's going to eat without both those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So in any type of family business, the earlier you can kind of identify your strengths and what you enjoy doing objectively and kind of focus on that and, delegate others to others, you're going to set yourself up for success. And it was natural as far as like my sister had lived in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time. I had a different uncle in Raleigh. we knew people were moving to the Carolinas. We were thrilled about the Southeast. Just great highway systems, great schools, great hospital systems. And we felt like, we should really be down in the Southeast. We're not going to chase deals in California. That's too far. New York and New Jersey are very competitive, and we'll get one or two here and there, and we have. But we really were excited about Atlanta and about the Carolinas.
Yeah.
So to me, that was just there was no big research. We didn't spend $1 million on a research paper to tell us to go there. It was kind of obvious. We had visited, and, we were thrilled about it.
Yeah. And so you have an interesting kind of investment thesis in terms of mixed use, right? Could you talk a little bit about that in the context of, let's say, those retail investments that kind of and how that evolved to more of a mixed use kind of?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So first of all, the thing that I always want to talk about that's important for people to realize really quickly: nobody comes to our properties because they like our family. We're not that cool. We're not that important. They come to our properties because they love the opportunity to shop in the store, to enjoy a service, whether it's a gym or something to eat, to connect with their friends, to walk around. Shopping is very much a social activity. We knew this when the internet was getting big and Amazon was getting big. Everybody said retail's going to go away, and we kept saying no. Shopping is an experience. People want to be together. They want to do those things. Now, that's certainly changed more to more eating out or going to trampoline parks or getting your hair done or working out together more, or even opening up an office, in a shopping center or medical space. So, of course, those uses are changing. We even have a tenant called Painted Tree, who is kind of like Etsy. It's like 200 little miniature Etsy stores under one roof. Obviously, with our Salons by JC brand, we have all different type of beauty owners in a beauty mall under one roof. So, yes, the uses have absolutely changed, but the same common sense statement of people want to shop and be together and eat together, to us is not changing. And I think we saw that during COVID. When COVID ended, everybody went shopping. The grocery stores are crushing it. Restaurants are very, very busy. And, our properties are performing very, very well because people love to be together.
Yeah. And just kind of drilling down a little bit on that, one of the interesting points that you raised when we talked earlier was, maximizing the potential returns on a property, right? And you mentioned the salons business. How do they intertwine in that objective?
Yeah, so it's very simple. A lot of real estate developers or sponsors will talk about, what's the highest and best use. And, maybe they'll look at a property and say, well, we should do industrial here, or we should do multifamily here, or whatever. So we look at a property and we'll say, what percentage should be retail? What percentage should be apartments? What percentage should be self-storage or something else, right? And that's what we're very focused on right now is we're looking at all of our shopping centers that we own already and saying, this center was approved in 1985. In 1985, the parking was 6 spots per 1,000 for a grocery store, and that grocery store left 10 years ago. Do we really need this huge asphalt parking lot for the property? What if we knock down 50% of this property and build apartments? And those new renters will now have the stores to shop in, right? So the retail, we're basically strengthening the retail that remains. Yep. And if we put a storage building there, the renters are probably going to want to store their stuff there. And people that come for storage may want to eat there, right?
Yep.
And people that eat there may want to say, wow, I could live here. So it all kind of plays together. So we're looking at every property we look at, we're thinking about kind of the price per square foot. Does that land already have something on it? And that clearly shows that, we could build on it in terms of the quality of the soil, or, every town's obviously different with their zoning. And, if there's an old industrial building, we could maybe convince the town that a beautiful apartment complex would be nicer than this crappy old industrial building. So that's what we're focusing on right now with the mixed use designation. Regarding the salons, if you rented a hair salon or a nail salon, in a shopping center, maybe they're paying you $20 a square foot or $25 a square foot, and you go to any shopping center in the country, you're looking at 2 hair salons, 2 nail salons. I mean, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So for us, it's just the concept of controlling our real estate, where we could take Salons by JC and chop up a space anywhere from 4,000 to as big as 10,000, and build 20 to 40 miniature little salons in that same space. And we have a shared manager, shared break room, no different than what doctors and lawyers have been doing for years with shared workspace, kind of like the WeWork for beauty.
Yeah.
And now those people can pay and own their own little private. So it's a fabulous opportunity for up and coming, for women, especially women of color who don't have so many chances to go get a loan and open up their own salon.
Yeah.
Very challenging as someone it's hard for me to open up my own salon and get a loan.
Mm-hmm.
So we love that. We think that's really helping the community. And also it ends up, paying the $20 a square foot plus another 20.
Right.
Or more. So, it kind of helps all sides.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that checking the highest and best use.
Yeah. So we have 7 of those open. Our 8th is under construction right now. And we've bought a few buildings that support that business, which is pretty cool, that we can kind of go to the lender and say, hey, we know the tenant's coming.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. And so
is that a concept that you developed in conjunction with some franchise operator, or?
It's a franchise. It was an existing franchise. We bought the area development rights for New Jersey and certain parts of North Carolina.
Right.
So we did not create the idea. It's been around about 25 years out of Texas, and just great people came up with it. And we went out to visit them and fell in love with it. And, we heard about it through some friends who were involved in massage envy and European wax. And
right.
we thought that was kind of interesting to hear more about having a franchise. And, what if we could own a franchise and have people below us who were paying up the royalties?
Yeah.
And the concept of kind of filling up space in our own centers just made sense to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. And just kind of behind the scenes then, from an investor perspective, what's your, how are you funding these initiatives? Are you taking external investors? Is it family money? Is it a combination of both?
So the salons are privately funded, just with Michael and I, and we have some debt partners.
Yeah.
We don't have any investors in that. The company, we have 2 buckets. So we kind of have the family legacy assets, which we've owned for anywhere from 5 to 20 years.
Yeah.
And they don't have investors. They're kind of old school assets that we've owned, and we're always tweaking them, refining, and whatever. Yep. And then the business that I'm most active in is kind of the new acquisitions business, which we do GP/LP deals. So we'll go to friends and family, and we'll raise anywhere from, I would say the average deal is probably $4 to $5 million. I'm just finishing up one right now, which is like $6 million. And those deals, Michael and I are the general partner, and the family invests in all those deals, of course. And there's some type of preferred return. It may be like a 9% preferred return, and some type of waterfall or cut after that.
Yeah.
And obviously, Michael and I manage the property. We come up with a strategy. There's always a value add play. And, the goal is to typically hold them anywhere from 3 to 7 years, and then either sell or refinance, give back everyone their money.
Yeah.
And it's a great program because it allows us to see more opportunities and spread the diversity of our family's capital. So instead of investing, let's say $4 million in one property, that's a lot of eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
You could invest $400,000 and have a big upside if it performs very, very strongly. And then we can keep looking at other properties as well. So, we used to only do maybe one deal every other year or every year. Now we can do 1 to 2 deals a year. We don't have to wait for the loans to refinance because there's always a pool. I'd say we have probably 50 to 75 close investors that are friends of friends, friends and family, anywhere from 100,000 to $1 million.
Yeah.
And they're just excited about the opportunity to be in these passive deals where they don't have to do anything. Yeah. And we manage their real estate portfolio for them basically, and they get a great return. And so far, so good. It's been a nice program.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I've got to ask, obviously, because it's a family business. It sounds like you get on well with Michael and et cetera. Are there any challenges that? The reason I ask this is I met with a senior member of a family office just a couple of weeks ago here in New York, and we had lunch, and he said the problem with a family office is first of all, you're dealing with the family's money, right? Notwithstanding the structure of some of your investments, but you're also, the most difficult part is you're dealing with family, and so the typical, we work with companies who are very structured and have lots of external investors, and they have a very as you can imagine, a very structured communication process and investor update process. Very different at the family office end, because you're dealing with emotions and family experience and relationships and things of that nature. What is it like, from your perspective, operating in a family business, and kind of the pros and cons of it, if you're happy to talk about that?
Yeah, you hear some crazy stories, a lot of dysfunction. There's a classic kind of story of like what they call shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, where the first generation, has to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty and build the wealth and build the company.
Yeah.
And the second generation is wearing their polo shirt, their sleeves are short and they're enjoying it. And then by the third generation, those kids are just screwing it up, and it's back to rolling up your shirt sleeves and getting your hands dirty. So I mean, in some ways I'm first generation, in some ways I'm second generation, and in some ways I'm third generation.
Right.
So I can't speak to all the other family offices. I mean, we don't invest as a family office so much outside of real estate. Like, everyone does their own thing in terms of their own 401ks and their own stock market and funds like that.
Yeah.
So we really only kind of focus on the family. And the fact that Paul and Jerry really expanded and built Allied. Obviously my grandfather started after World War II. He was a war hero. He landed on the beaches in Normandy. He came home. He was shot. He had 2 Purple Hearts. I mean, it's an incredible generation. And somebody gave him a chance, and he opened up a little store selling gifts and cards and paper clips, etc.
Yeah.
But Paul and Jerry really grew it to the next level. Mm-hmm. And so, we grew up watching them hustle. And, because they're still involved in the business, we appreciate the value of a dollar and everything that they have done. And we always say capital preservation is more important than capital appreciation, because we really made this money. They made this money.
Different motivation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the personalities work well together. I mean, do we all go out to dinner and socialize nonstop? No, of course not. Everyone kind of does their own thing. We have our own friends. We don't live in the same towns. We're not competitive at school. We're not competitive in sports. It's not like that.
Yeah.
We trust each other, and we work well together. And it's been great working with my family.
Yeah. And so the let's say the threads that I see throughout the story here, Garret, just to kind of pull it together, the retail background, as you mentioned, with your grandfather Murray, let's say the sensibility that brings with it as a retailer, then bringing that into retail proper, seems to have served you extremely well as a family, and I guess an appreciation for those retailers in those shopping centers that you were investing in.
Absolutely.
And expanding, but then also recognizing that as times change, as society changes, I'm sure lots of challenges along the way, looking at new business models. And so that, mixed use model that you talked about, where you're repurposing and maximizing returns on those investments. And then to bring us kind of bang up to date, your latest project in New Jersey, Hawthorns. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Here it is. Here's the big wine, the Hedges at Hawthorne.
The Hedges is all right. Yes.
Never see that?
Yeah.
Great. We can pop this open next time we're together. So yeah, I'd love to talk about Hedges at Hawthorne. My favorite topic. Talk about family perseverance, and maybe too stupid to give up. But we were invested in this town, Hawthorne, New Jersey. Really lovely town. very, very dense, near the train to New York City. A lot of people commuting to the city. Just a real infill area, 500,000 people in 5 miles. Very tough to buy property in this type of neighborhood in New Jersey. Old school. And we bought a shopping center, and we've done very well with the shopping center. I think we bought it in 2011, and we still own it. We've renovated it many times. We've added national tenants. We've updated the lighting, the facades. We've added millions of dollars of value. And so we were approached by, I think, the mayor of the town. This is now 2007 or 8. And he said, there's this old site down the road from you guys. We think it'd be great for retail. It was an old Merck manufacturing plant.
Right.
Something. And Merck bought it, but they don't really want it. They bought some company and they just want to sell this thing. And it was a dirty site. There had been some environmental, and they cleaned it all up and spent millions doing that. And, the town thinks more retail would be great. You guys own that shopping center. So, we would support you doing more retail here.
Right.
And so, we said, great. And we were able to get a deal with Kohl's department stores. They were going to build a 2-story, 50,000 square feet over 50. So 100,000 total. And it was a great deal for us. We were going to buy the land for maybe $7 million, spend $3 million in site work. So let's just say the investment was $10 million.
Yeah.
Kohl's was going to pay $1,150,000 a year. So you're talking north of a 10% return on development with a national credit tenant with a 20-year lease. We just thought, set it, forget it, we're good.
Yeah.
We were very new on the development side, and we ended up closing on the property so fast and we got the zoning change to allow retail very, very fast. But Kohl's had not finalized the deal with us. We were, 95% of the way there, but not 100.
Right.
And we closed on the property in June of 2008. And September 2008, Lehman Brothers goes bad, and the Great Recession hits, and Kohl's says, you know what, guys? We're good. We're going to pass.
Wow.
And we said, oh, my God, we're sitting here. We just bought this $7 million project. What the hell are we going to do?
Yeah.
So knocked our head against the wall a few times. And we ended up we had nothing going for 2 years maybe with the recession. And finally, I think it was 2011, we were able to get Walmart to sign a lease, which was no easy feat. They wanted to open up their grocery store. It's called Walmart Neighborhood Market. They're all over the Southeast, but they're not really here in New Jersey.
Right.
And, it's only 50,000 square feet, I believe. And we went to the planning board and got the site approved for that type of building and retail. And we weren't allowed to say who it was. It was very secretive for Walmart. And a couple months later, the town gets a lawsuit, and some group gets formed by a resident who says, Hawthorne deserves better than Walmart. We don't want Walmart in our little town of Hawthorne. And turns out that lawsuit was funded by a gentleman who owned ShopRite, which was the competing grocery store in the town next door.
Okay. So there's
Yep. And this happens all over New Jersey, which is really unfortunate because taxpayers suffer by this fighting.
Yeah.
You don't see this in multifamily. People support each other.
Yeah.
So we spent some time working on that, and Walmart came to us at some juncture and said, guys, this looks like a big fight. We don't want to hang around for a couple more years. We're not going to hang around. If you can figure it out, great. But if you're not done by this date, whatever. And so they said they're out of here. And, that really hurt because the Chamber of Commerce had done a presentation to the town, I guess a big survey, what uses do you want in town? And number one, Ferdy, was a grocery store.
Wow.
And we delivered that. And there was a lot of misinformation and paranoia. People actually thought we were going to build a 200,000 square foot Walmart, even though it was only 50. And they were worried that it was going to be abandoned and horrible and crime and yada, yada, yada.
Right.
So now we sit for a couple of years and nothing happens. And then the state had a bunch of grants that were given, kind of an initiative called the Transit-Oriented Village, I think they called it.
Right.
And they basically said, if you live in these 10 areas and you're within a quarter mile from the train, you could apply for this transit designation and get tax credits. Well, I went on Google Earth and I measured our distance to the train. I said, oh my God, this fits.
Right.
But the only problem was we weren't in one of those areas. So I said, no problem. Let's just act like we are. And we're not going to get the grant, but we're going to say we're transit oriented because that's the hot new topic everyone's talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
So we told that to the town, and we partnered up with a developer, and we kind of pitched I want to say it was maybe 200, and don't quote me on this, it's been now a while, but 230 or 250 apartments, right? Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it was going to have a little bit of office, like maybe 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of office, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of retail. So mixed use, but very small.
Right.
And we had to go to the zoning board, and that took like a year. And would you believe they said no? After a year, they said no. And we had a good relationship with the town. We said, guys, you don't want to plant manufacturing. We tried retail, Kohl's, they pulled out. We tried grocery, the town got sued. You don't want this apartment. What do you want? Don't we have a right to use this land somehow? So we had to sue the town at that point on affordable housing, because every town in New Jersey needs to provide a certain amount of affordable housing, and they were way behind.
Right.
And they have to develop a plan and kind of say, all right, we can do it here, we can do it there. And they forgot to say you could do it on our site, which is the big open piece of dirt ready to go.
Yeah.
So we went to mediation, and we ended up settling with the town. And basically what we got was 100 luxury market rate apartments, 17 affordable apartments, 120,000 square feet of storage, which is a CubeSmart.
Right.
And then we also got 16,000 feet of retail, which is 14,000 was pre-leased to Planet Fitness, and the balance is like a little cafe that's doing smoothies, paninis, gelatos, specialty coffees, and then one other small little 1,000-foot store that we're still working on.
Yeah.
So that became Hedges at Hawthorne, which is kind of a very aspirational lifestyle brand for a place you want to come home to. And it's fully amenitized, luxury units. We're talking a gym, a hair salon, coffee bars, roof deck, dog wash, dog walks, just wonderful, wonderful spaces, community spaces, work from home spaces. And it's very convenient, and it's all walking distance to the New York City train.
Yeah.
So we're thrilled with the project. It's been open 2 months. We're about 50% leased, and on our way to doing really, really well with it. And the rents are about 30% higher than we ever estimated. And that's the kickoff to now really proof of concept, with other investors and lenders, that our family can not only pull off a ground up development, we can do it during COVID, we can do it during supply chain issues with inflation.
Yep.
We could finance it, and we're really excited about it.
That's incredible. And as you say, kind of quite a journey to get there, but you're there. And is the intent then to develop the Hedges brand across multiple properties, or?
Wow, Ferdy, you're a genius.
Yeah.
We never discussed that. That is absolutely the plan.
Right.
That is now the family brand.
That's great.
And we are looking at things in North Carolina to do it. Yep, absolutely.
Excellent. Oh, great. Well, congratulations on that, and continued success. Just to kind of close out here, you're speaking of community, which is, I guess, what you're building and have built at Hedges. I know involvement in the community is a strong part of your company's ethos. Can you talk just a moment about that?
Absolutely. It's funny. When I was younger, Allied used to get involved with different things in the community, many, many causes. And I remember being involved in the Special Olympics and playing softball and visiting different organizations with that great organization and different events, and just always felt like giving back was super important. I kind of live by the ethos: the more you give, the more you get.
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple fun things on the business side. We actually have a organization called Freedom House Thrift, and it's a organization in North Carolina that has homes that bring in women that are, dealing with domestic abuse, dealing with alcoholism, that have probably lost their kids, in court and aren't fit to be a mom. And they basically bring them in and rehab them, and they open up a thrift store. And so they came to me and said, we have this great idea. We want to have a thrift store in your shopping center. We don't know if it's going to work or not. And these women that we're trying to rehab and reintroduce to society, we want to put them to work there. We want to teach them life skills, and they're going to be employees.
Yeah.
And they were all nervous about it. And I said, listen, I think this is great. Our family would love to be involved. And we said to them, why don't you come to our shopping center, no charge, and use the space November, December as a test. Because if you can't make it November, December, you're not going to make it in January and February. So we literally gave them the space for free, no commitment. They had to sign a short little document for insurance or whatever, some liability stuff. And I was just so thrilled about that. And it turns out they loved it. And they ended up renting a space. I think they took a 5-year space. Wow. And a couple of years later, they came back to me and said, Garret, we're doing really well. We need to expand. And I said, great. I guess I'm your real estate department. We're going to open up the wall. And we knocked that wall down. We took out our hammers and knocked that wall down.
Yeah.
And we now doubled their space. And they're doing great. Then they called me again a couple of years later and said, Garret, we're doing real well. We want to do another store. And we only want to work with you guys because, you really get us and you care about us. And so I know that there's a store they've been looking at for a while. And this is one of my best properties. It's main and main, best visibility in town, best area of town. And it literally sits between TJ Maxx and Ross. And this space is primed for a national tenant. And I can tell you, 90% of landlords would say, no way in hell I'm giving it to this mom and pop tenant, this thrift store.
Yeah.
And I called them up and said, guys, I got your store.
Right.
And they were blown away. And no, they're paying a real rent.
Yeah.
But they are just crushing it. And they're so thankful that we gave them that opportunity because we felt like it was the right thing to do. And they've been great to us and we need things from them. And, we may have to move their store because we want to renovate that property that I told you about.
Yeah.
And it's just how you do business. You've got to be good to each other. You got to take care of each other and always think about the relationship and the human element. So, we pride ourselves on doing that. And on a personal note, I sit on the board of the Jewish Home Family, which is a great organization that has, senior living, assisted living, home and home services. And, we help any senior in the community. We're not for profit. And I'm involved there and helping advise them on the business. And I'm learning a lot. I'm meeting some great people. And we have a new indoor warm water, saltwater therapy center where, God forbid, your grandmother broke her hip and needs to come for a week or to have, you don't want to stay in the hospital. You want to have a place to stay and get good food and good care. And so I love giving back to our seniors. It makes me think about my grandparents and honoring them. How much somebody gave my grandfather a shot at the business. And I always kind of think I got to pay that forward. I got to give someone else a chance, whether do business or, helping someone out. Like we've had many instances where someone's pitched us an idea that, I know other landlords would pass on. But when I got to meet the person, I saw such a winning culture and attitude that this person was betting their life on it. And I would say, let's go for it. Let's try it out. And we always say, look, let's try your rent. Maybe you'll do half rent for a year. We don't try to make the last buck on somebody that first year. We want to build best in class operators and long-term relationships. We always think about the value of the long-term relationship. It's not the tenant who pays you $1,000 a month is not $1,000 customer. They pay $12,000 a year. So if they stay with you for 10 years, they're $120,000 customer.
Yeah.
And so that's how we have to treat everybody. And that's just the approach. I guess I've learned that from my father, my uncle, my grandfather.
Yeah. That's it's a very retail oriented, lifetime value of a customer. Well, Garret, I really appreciate the background and the insights. It's been insightful to kind of step inside a family organization, particularly one with 70 plus years of history.
Yeah.
To call on. And yeah, I think it's admirable, what you're doing for the thrift store. Just at a personal level, I think the idea or the concept of a hand up rather than a handout, is so much more effective in the longer term, right? People have pride, and but giving them that first chance and giving them the opportunity to succeed in their own right is really admirable. So, congrats on that. Congrats on your success. with hedges, and look forward to keeping track of that and seeing you expand, to across the southeast, etc. It sounds like you've got a great concept there. So congrats on that.
And Ferdy, if anybody wants to visit, the website, it's just hedges at Hawthorne.
Okay.
Or maybe you can put that in the show notes or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, we have Instagram, and if they mention that they saw Garrett's podcast, we'll try to throw in a free gift or something there.
Nice. I like it. And if people want to connect with you, Garret, how is it best to do that?
Absolutely. My Instagram is Garret Graham, so it's GarretGram, and they could reach out to me on Instagram and follow me and see what we're up to. They can also go to the family's website, bedrin.com, bedrin.com.
Yep.
They can write to us. Our contact info is there, and of course LinkedIn. We're very approachable.
Yeah, great. Well, we'll put those in the show notes for sure. And if people want to reach out, please do so. But just to wrap up here, Garret, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it here on the People of Private Capital podcast. And we'll see you guys again in the future. Thanks a lot, Garret.
Take care. Thanks, Ferdy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.